Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going deep on the 100 Thing Challenge.
Ooh, this one's a classic.
Right. It's been a while since I dug into Dave Bruno's book, and I'm curious to hear your take on it.
Absolutely. Living for a year with only 100 personal possessions, talk about a minimalist's dream.
Well, that's the challenge, isn't it? But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's lay it out for our listeners. We're working with Bruno's book and audiobook, exploring his personal experience with this radical downsizing experiment.
And it's not just about decluttering, is it? It's about examining our relationship with stuff, what it means to have enough, what really matters.
Yeah, that stuck-in stuff feeling. I think we've all experienced that to some degree.
Yeah.
But what struck me about Bruno's story is that he wasn't this hardcore minimalist already living in a tiny house or something.
He was an average guy. House, family, the whole nine yards.
Exactly. Which makes his decision to embrace this challenge even more fascinating. What was it like this epiphany moment where he suddenly realized he had too much stuff?
Not quite an epiphany. It was more this gradual disillusionment with American consumerism. He talks about feeling overwhelmed, like all this stuff wasn't actually making him happy. It was more of a burden.
So he decided to, what, purge it all and start over?
Well, not exactly all. That's where the 100 Thing Challenge comes in. It's about setting limits, being intentional about what you own.
100 things, though. That seems so restrictive. Like, how do you even begin to choose?
Well, there were rules. Bruno laid out some guidelines to make it, more manageable.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't just a free-for-all. What were some of the rules?
For example, things like underwear and socks, those counted as a single group, not individual items.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be using up half your allowance on socks alone. Were there any other rules that stood out to you?
Oh, absolutely. He had this one library rule.
One library. What's that all about?
Basically, all his books counted as one item.
Genius. I could get behind that rule.
Yeah.
It'd be impossible for me to choose just a handful of books.
Right. It acknowledges that for some of us, books are essential. And there's another rule I found interesting, a 7-day grace period for dealing with gifts.
Ah, that's very practical. We've all received gifts that maybe weren't quite our taste. So he had a whole week to decide what to do with them.
Exactly. Donate, re-gift, whatever. The point was to be mindful about it. And there was one more rule that I think is key to understanding the whole challenge. He could actually buy new things.
Wait, what? So it wasn't about completely abstaining from shopping?
Nope. He could buy new things as long as he replaced an older item, and of course he had to stay under that 100-item limit.
So it's more about making conscious choices,
Yeah.
right? Weighing the value of what you bring into your life.
Exactly. It's about being intentional, not just mindlessly accumulating stuff.
Okay, so he sets these rules, starts downsizing. I can only imagine that process was intense.
Oh, it was. It wasn't just physical decluttering. It was an emotional roller coaster.
Right, because every object has a story, a memory, some kind of emotional attachment.
Absolutely. Bruno talks about this struggle with his father's model train collection.
Oh, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, it represented a connection to his dad, all these memories.
But also maybe a sense of obligation, like he had to keep it.
Exactly. He wrestled with feelings of responsibility, maybe even guilt. It really forced him to confront those sentimental attachments and ask, what truly matters?
Did he end up keeping the trains?
He didn't. And it was a tough decision, but it was a turning point for him. It helped him realize that sometimes letting go is about honoring the past, not being trapped by it.
I love that, letting go to honor the past. Did he find that letting go got easier as he went through the challenge?
In some ways, yes. But then there's this fascinating anecdote about his woodworking tools.
Oh, tell me more.
Bruno had this fantasy of becoming this master artisan.
Okay, so even though he was simplifying, he still had these aspirational goals.
Absolutely. And for him, woodworking represented that.
So the tools were more than just tools. They were symbolic of something bigger.
Right. And he even came up with this whole elaborate plan to get a high-end router.
Hold on, he was trying to buy a new tool while doing the 100 Thing Challenge.
Well, he found this loophole. He could use eBay and store credit, trying to outsmart the system.
It's like this little voice in his head saying, come on, you need this to be a real artisan.
It really highlights how sneaky those consumerist desires can be.
So did he get the fancy router?
He almost did. But then he had this realization, mastery isn't about having the best tools. It's about the dedication, the process, the journey.
So he let go of the router and the artisan fantasy.
He did. He realized that external validation, the stuff, it wasn't the key to fulfillment.
There's a lesson there for all of us, I think. But all this purging and soul searching, it begs the question, what was the actual impact of this challenge on his life? Did it really make a difference?
It did, and in ways you might not expect, like his finances.
Oh, right. Less stuff, less spending. Makes sense.
Exactly. He wasn't spending money on impulse buys, things he didn't really need.
I bet he felt that in his wallet.
He did. He even joked about finally being able to park his minivan in the garage because it wasn't packed with stuff.
Okay, that's a tangible benefit I can get behind. But it wasn't just about the money, was it?
Oh no, not at all. There were deeper shifts happening. He talks about this change in focus from acquiring things to engaging in experiences and really nurturing relationships.
So quality time over material possessions.
Precisely. He started appreciating those simple everyday moments more.
Sounds like a recipe for contentment right there. But I have to wonder, did his minimalist lifestyle freak people out? Family, friends, colleagues.
Well, you'd be surprised. It wasn't all awkward encounters and raised eyebrows. His wife, for instance, she had a pretty good sense of humor about it all.
Oh, that's good. I can just imagine the jokes. Honey, have you seen my insert lost item here? Oh, wait, you only have 100 things. It can't be that hard to find.
Exactly. They seem to have a healthy dynamic about it, but there were some more, shall we say, interesting reactions from others, like the media.
Oh, the media. Did they jump on the minimalist guru bandwagon?
You'd think, right. But they actually ignored him.
Really? That's surprising.
It is, and it kind of proves his point, right? The media wanted a dramatic before and after story.
But his life wasn't radically different on the outside. It was the internal shift that mattered.
Exactly. The lack of drama was actually a testament to his contentment. He didn't need those highs and lows of consumerism anymore. He was finding peace in a simpler way of life.
That's pretty powerful.
Mhm.
Did he find that this message resonated with others? Was he like a lone wolf in the minimalism movement?
Actually, no. A whole online community started forming around the challenge.
People connecting over their shared desire to simplify.
Exactly. They were drawn to Bruno's message, his honesty, his vulnerability.
It's inspiring to see that even something as personal as downsizing can spark a larger conversation. Earlier you mentioned his family and the model train collection. How did his family as a whole react to his, minimalist experiment?
Well, it's a mixed bag, which I think is very realistic. It shows how deeply ingrained our ideas about giving and caring are. For instance, his mother wanted to buy him a luxurious jacket for Christmas.
Oh, that's so classic. Like, I love you, so I buy you nice things.
Exactly. But of course, for Bruno, it created this dilemma.
Right. How do you explain this minimalist challenge to someone who expresses love through gifts?
It highlights how these lifestyle changes can ripple out and require understanding, communication with loved ones. But his sister was incredibly supportive.
Oh, that's great. So he had some allies in his corner.
He did. His sister even considered downsizing herself. Then there's his father-in-law.
Oh, that's pretty good.
He gave Bruno count 'em, 4 sport coats for Christmas.
Oh, wow. You can't make this stuff up. Talk about missing the point.
It just goes to show how differently people interpret simplicity. Some people just really love a good sport coat, I guess. But even with these funny anecdotes, it raises a serious question. Did Bruno always stick to the rules perfectly? Was he ever tempted to break the challenge?
Well, he's human, right? There's this one incident, this Black Friday shopping trip.
Oh no, Black Friday. That's like the Super Bowl of consumerism.
It is. And he went with his wife, who needed new jeans, and he ends up buying himself a new jacket.
Wait a minute. Didn't he say no new stuff unless it's a replacement?
Yeah, he did. And technically, he followed the rules. Replaced an old jacket, stayed under the 100-item limit.
So what's the problem?
It created this internal conflict. Like, yeah, he followed the letter of the law, but did he break the spirit of the challenge?
Right. I get it. It's about more than just the numbers. It's about that mindset shift.
Exactly. Confronting those consumerist impulses that we all have. And it's fascinating to hear how he justifies the purchase. Okay, lay it on me. How did he rationalize a Black Friday jacket?
Well, he needed a warm jacket for work, and he wanted to look good for date night with his wife.
Ah, the classic date night excuse. But it's relatable, right? We all have those moments where we want to treat ourselves.
It's human nature, and it shows that intentional living isn't about being this perfect anti-shopping robot. It's about awareness.
Making conscious choices. Recognizing when we're giving in to those impulses versus making decisions that align with our values.
Absolutely. And it brings up a common concern about minimalism. If everyone lived like Bruno, what would happen to the economy?
That's a good point. People often assume that minimalism equals anti-capitalism.
And Bruno tackles that head on. He argues that if we spent less on unnecessary stuff, we'd have more money to save and invest.
So potentially a stronger economy in the long run.
Exactly. And it's not just theoretical. He walks the walk, paid off debt, started saving more, supported local businesses.
It's not about rejecting the system altogether. It's about choosing to participate in a more conscious way.
Right. Simplicity doesn't equal economic withdrawal. But let's be real. This was just 1 year, right? Did he go back to his old ways once the challenge was over?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. Was this just a temporary detox, or did it create lasting change?
The good news is, it stuck. He continued to embrace a little goods life, even after the year was up.
Now, that's what I like to hear. It's not about the quick fix. It's about finding a sustainable way of life.
Absolutely. And get this, months after the challenge, he still owned less than 100 things.
Wow. So it wasn't just about following rules for a year. It was about transforming his relationship with stuff.
He really internalized it. And he still bought things, of course, but he was so much more intentional about it.
Like quality over quantity.
Exactly. Durable, well-made items. Things that would last.
It's like he shifted from mindless consumer to conscious curator of his possessions.
I love that. Conscious curator. That's a great way to put it. And at the end of the day, that's what Bruno's story reminds us. True happiness doesn't come from a pile of stuff.
It comes from those deeper connections, experiences, personal growth, contributing to something bigger than ourselves. And I think that's something we all crave, whether we realize it or not.
It's a powerful message, especially in our current culture of more is better and instant gratification.
And it all circles back to intentionality, choosing to create space in our lives for what truly matters.
Absolutely. So if you're intrigued by this idea of intentional living, I highly recommend checking out Dave Bruno's website.
Yeah, he's got tons of resources there, tips on downsizing, stories from others who've taken the challenge, reflections on living a simpler life.
It's a great way to connect with a community of like-minded individuals and find support on your own journey.
And who knows, maybe you'll be inspired to give the 100-thing challenge a try. But even if you don't go that far, even small steps toward simplifying can make a big difference.
Absolutely. It's about finding what works for you, what aligns with your values. It's a journey, not a destination.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the 100-thing challenge, let's leave our listeners with a question. Imagine for a moment that you could only keep 100 things. What would those 100 things be? And what would that list tell you about yourself? What really matters to you?
It's a great thought experiment, isn't it? It kind of forces you to get down to the essentials. What do you really need? What brings you joy? What reflects your values?
And maybe what are you holding on to that's no longer serving you? Dave Bruno's 100-thing challenge. It might seem radical, but it really boils down to this idea of intentionality.
Being mindful of what we allow into our lives, both the physical stuff and the mental clutter.
And it's not about deprivation. It's about creating space for what truly matters. Experiences, relationships, personal growth, giving back.
Bruno's story shows us that a simpler life, it's not about sacrifice. It's about freedom. Freedom from that constant pressure to consume, to accumulate.
And that's a message that resonates deeply, especially today. We're bombarded with messages telling us we need more, more, more.
And Bruno's like, hey, what if we tried less? And guess what? He found more happiness and fulfillment on the other side of that equation.
It's inspiring, isn't it? And it's a reminder that we all have the power to choose a different path.
A path that's more aligned with our values, more sustainable, more meaningful.
Absolutely. So if you're feeling that tug, that desire to simplify, to explore this idea of intentional living, we encourage you to check out Dave Bruno's website.
He's created this amazing resource. There are articles, tips on decluttering, stories from others who've taken the challenge.
It's a great way to connect with a community of like-minded people. Maybe you'll find the inspiration to embark on your own 100-thing challenge.
Or maybe you'll just start with a small step. Declutter a drawer. Reevaluate your spending habits.
Whatever feels right for you. It's all about progress, not perfection.
Well said.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the 100-thing challenge. We hope you found it thought-provoking. And remember, it's not about deprivation. It's about creating a life that's richer, more meaningful, and more aligned with what truly matters.